And now, making his way to the studio, broadcasting live from an undisclosed location inside Hobby Lobby, it's Mike Smithgall.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike Smithgall, the unelected mayor of Atheistville, and this is today's Mic Drop. Now this week, Attorney General Pam Bondi said something that should make anyone who values free speech pause. She told a podcast audience that the Justice Department would target hate speech. She claimed that there's free speech and then there's hate speech. The problem? Legally, that's not true. There is no hate speech exemption in the U.S. Constitution. Bondi later tried to walk that back, but the damage had already been done. When the top law enforcement official in the country suggests prosecuting speech based on content, that's not a minor gaffe. That's a dangerous signal, and it reveals a deeper hypocrisy on how we treat speech in America. Now let's listen to Bondi in her own words.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society. We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
That sounds like tough talk. It also sounds unconstitutional in the United States. The First Amendment protects offensive, cruel, and even hateful speech. Courts have said this over and over. The only exceptions are very narrow, such as incitement to imminent lawless action, true threats, targeted harassment, and other unprotected categories like defamation. Everything else, however disgusting, is legally protected. When Bondi spoke, she blurred that line. She implied the government would go after people not for threatening violence, but for saying things labeled hateful. That's viewpoint discrimination, something the Supreme Court has repeatedly struck down. In RAV versus St. Paul, the court invalidated a hate speech ordinance because it punished expression based on viewpoint. In Snyder versus Phelps, the court upheld Westboro Baptist's offensive funeral protests precisely because the First Amendment doesn't allow the government to censor speech based on its content. So Bondi's claim that the Justice Department would target hate speech wasn't just rhetorical overreach. It was a direct contradiction of the law she's sworn to uphold. Now, to see why this matters, we need to talk about consistency. President Trump has said horrible things about individuals, about immigrants, about entire countries. Charlie Kirk built a career on provocation, often using rhetoric the left considered hateful. When critics called their speech hate speech, conservatives defended it as free speech. They were legally correct, but politically selective. Now, after Kirk's tragic assassination, we're watching them flip the script. Suddenly, when the insults flow in the other direction, Bondi says it's not free speech anymore, it's criminal. This is the problem. Free speech either applies universally or becomes a partisan tool. Both sides fall into the trap. The left often demands hate speech restrictions to protect vulnerable groups, while the right demands absolute free speech until their own figures are targeted. Neither side seems willing to defend the principle when it's uncomfortable. But that's what free speech is. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. You don't defend the words you like, you defend the words you despise. There's a superbly written scene in The American President that captures this better than any politician has managed in years.
America is advanced citizenship. You've got to want it bad, because it's going to put up a fight. It's going to say, you want free speech? Let's see you acknowledge a man whose words make your blood boil, who's standing center stage and advocating at the top of his lungs that which you would spend a lifetime opposing at the top of yours. You want to claim this land as a land of the free? Then the symbol of your country cannot just be a flag. The symbol also has to be one of its citizens exercising his right to burn that flag in protest. Now show me that. Defend that. Celebrate that in your classrooms. Then you can stand up and sing about the land of the free.
That's the principle. You want to claim this country is a land of the free? Then you defend speech that makes your skin crawl. You protect the person burning the flag as much as the person waving it. Bondi's framing does the opposite. She says speech is free when I like it, but punishable when I don't. That's not principle. That's power politics. And if we normalize it, the consequences will be felt by everyone. Today, it's critics of Charlie Kirk. Tomorrow, it could be critics of Christianity. Next week, it'd be critics of the government itself. All right, quick pause. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would love to have you join the community here at Atheistville. We're continuing to grow, and we're building a space for honest conversation about faith, about doubt and reason. Subscribing is absolutely free, and it helps people find this discussion, and it keeps the project growing. And I want to ask you to do one more thing for me, if you could. Leave a comment. I read every single one, and whether I agree with you or disagree with you, I will answer respectfully because I value open dialogue. Your comments don't just help shape the conversation, they also show the algorithm that this community is worth recommending. All right, let's get back into it. Now, some people argue that hate speech should be banned because it harms dignity and creates a climate of intimidation. Philosophers like Jeremy Waldron say hateful words aren't just unpleasant, they undermine equality by marking groups as inferior. That's worth acknowledging. Words can hurt, they can stigmatize, they can create an environment of hostility. But the legal system is not designed to police feelings, it's designed to police actions, and that's where the line has to be. The U.S. stands apart from other democracies. Canada and Germany criminalize certain hate speech. The U.K. outlaws racial vilification. The U.S. does not, and there's a reason for that. Once you let the government define hate, the scope keeps expanding. Today it's slurs. Tomorrow it's criticism of religion. Next year it's political dissent. The courts have been clear. The cure for bad speech is more speech, not less. You counter hate with arguments, exposure, ridicule, and most importantly, better ideas. Silencing it through law not only violates the Constitution, it risks turning hateful speakers into martyrs. Bondi's comments flirt with importing a European model into an American system that has rejected it for centuries. And she does so under the cover of tragedy, using Kirk's assassination as a rationale to expand government power over expression. That is a very dangerous precedent. Free speech principles are easy to defend when the words are harmless. They're tested when the words are vile. That's when politicians reveal whether they value principle or politics. Charlie Kirk, for all his influence, was not a defender of free speech in any consistent sense. He used it when it served him and dismissed his critics as haters. Trump was the same. The left, meanwhile, has long demanded restrictions on speech they deem harmful, from campus protest to online moderation. What Bondi shows is that even the highest office in the Justice Department is not immune from that temptation. By talking about prosecuting hate speech, she sent a signal that the administration is willing to redefine constitutional boundaries based on political convenience. That should worry conservatives and liberals and everybody in between. Because once the government starts deciding which words are too hateful to be legal, the door swings both ways. The same power that censors your enemy today will censor you tomorrow. And this is where consistency matters. Defending free speech doesn't mean endorsing every word. It means accepting the right to offend is the price of living in a free society. The real threat here isn't ugly words. It's a government that wants to control them. Bondi wasn't alone. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, has said he would look for removing members of the military who made comments against Charlie Kirk. Let that sink in. Kirk wasn't a public official. He wasn't a military commander. He was a political podcaster. For the head of Defense Department to threaten service members' careers over criticism of a civilian pundit isn't defending the Constitution, it is shredding it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio went even further, saying visas should be revoked for immigrants who made comments against Kirk. Think about that precedent. Free speech for citizens, but not for residents who happen to offend the wrong political figure. That's not equal protection, that's selective punishment. The doomsday scenario of government overreach isn't hypothetical. It's happening right now. These aren't fringe voices. This is the Attorney General, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of State openly suggesting that people should lose jobs, immigration status, or military careers over speech that is legally protected. And let me add this. We can't skip the First Amendment as if it's less important while focusing all our passions on the Second Amendment. The right often tells us the most valid reason for Second Amendment is to protect our freedoms from government overreach. But the most basic of those freedoms is speech itself, the right to think, to argue, to dissent, to criticize leaders. Without the First Amendment, the Second Amendment has no purpose. I would hope my friends on the right would defend the First Amendment as vigorously as they defend the Second Amendment. Because if we don't hold the line on free expression, all other freedoms are just waiting their turn to be taken. Free speech isn't about liking the words you hear, it's about tolerating the ones you hate. Bondi, Hegseth, and Rubio have shown us how fragile that principle becomes when politics and tragedy collide. All right, that's my 2 cents, unblessed and unfiltered. Agree or disagree, but that's what I got for you today. And as I wrap up this discussion, remember that the strength of free speech isn't measured when it's easy. It's measured when it's tested by the worst words spoken by the people we dislike the most. If we abandon the principle there, it won't be long before we abandon it everywhere. The First Amendment doesn't bend depending on which side you're on. Trump and Kirk were protected when their words were called hateful. Their critics are protected too. Freedom of speech is a shield that works only when it covers everyone. The moment we carve out exceptions for convenience, the principle itself collapses. All right, thanks for listening to today's episode. I'm Mike Smithgall, and I'll catch you on the next one. Hey, thanks for tuning in to today's show. I really hope you enjoyed it. Do me a favor and like and subscribe to the show and tell a friend. That helps us grow and it lets us keep bringing you more voices from the other side of belief. Until we talk again, be kind to one another and remember that reason and compassion go a long way.